Minagafogaan. Yeah. Mananatzizu is buenas tantafade to the Hamzu. Guahosi Dr. David Ruskin, 5 años, profesor Gwini UOG, Gehilogi Departmenton Linguistics. Pago Sumasagazu Giza New York, Hiotna para I Familiaku, Lo Senmagov, Nagaigetsu Gwinitalo. So thank you all for being here. I'm really excited to share with you some of the things that we have been working on and to talk about not only the project, but also to talk about CHamoru and its past, present, and future trajectories. The first thing, just to, we have some honored guests in the hall today. Let me just acknowledge Dean Monique Storie is here, members of the Kumision, members of the Department of Education. It's so good to have you with us. And then let me introduce our first speaker and also the principal investigator on the project, Dr. Robert Underwood. He is one of these people who has a CV that's sort of like Santa's list, where if you unroll it, it just sort of rolls out the door. And so I'll only just mention a few of I keep learning more things that you have done, and it blows my mind. But among other things, he has served as Guam's representative to Congress, served as the president of this university for 10 years, and has been very active in Indigenous and Pacific Islander education stateside, which I was just learning about the other day. So we'll leave it at that, but I welcome Dr. Underwood to the stage.
Buenos dias, half a day. Okay, half a day. No, one of the things that sometimes is thrown back at me a lot is that I say, you can't half a day your way to preserving CHamoru. So we went, my son Robert is here, sumasaga si Roberto no Las Vegas. Lo maunang para restaurant gipangi pasana umalumam gigi dusitani. Todo half a day. I guess we're making that effort to half a day our way to CHamoru, but maybe it won't work. I know it won't work if we just do that. So I wanted to first of all acknowledge the work of others as well. And so sometimes in this process, we have a lot of people who have worked over the years, and of course, along with all of us, I see them as partners in the struggle. Of course, Rosa Palomo, who's a longtime bilingual project director, actually was supervised by her as a curriculum writer many decades ago, and then and also taught CHamoru here, and also was former director of education. Senora Hope Cristobal, who was in the legislature, also a longtime advocate and partner in the struggle for indigenous rights, and we go back a ways on that. And Anne-Marie Arceo, who is associated with Hurrah, and that work is fantastic. I think the single greatest contributor to a lot of our efforts to understanding not just the need for maintaining CHamoru over the decades, but also to understand what it takes at the granular level, at the ground level. That's a really different reality. And so she's done that. And of course, we have Dr. Gerhard Schwab, who has done a lot with the CHamoru website. I don't know, maybe you're up to 1 million visitors by now. I don't know, certainly the extent of that. And of course, Jimmy Teria, who's currently the administrator for CHamoru studies. And they're just celebrating their 50th year in terms of its existence, in terms of CHamoru language and culture. So program. So there's a lot of work. There's a lot of things going on. But this project, which is the one that Dr. Ruskin and I have worked on, is about documenting It's called the National Science. It's funded by the National Science Foundation. Gogud and CHachalåni muna I pinota. And in that, when we asked we actually employed someone to prepare a kind of logo for us. They put out this sihik, and that was great. And then it was like on a branch, but when I looked at it, I said, that looks like a microphone. And then we thought, well, maybe it is better to put a microphone on it than a branch. And because what we're doing is we're documenting through audio the first language speakers of CHamoru. So in order to do this, in order to get funded, we first had to document that CHamoru is in fact an endangered language. Now there's ways to do that. Now intuitively we think it's endangered, but not everybody thinks it's endangered. You know, because there's some languages out there that have 10 speakers left. Now that's really an endangered language. So Fino CHamoru is in that. And so it certainly is a weak language, and its future prospects are pretty grim, and there may be no speakers left by the end of this century. Perhaps a few thousand by 2050, which is only 25 years from now. Think about that. It's only 25 years from now. Think about 25 years ago. That's only at the turn of the century. So time goes by and people pass away, and then the whole environment change, and maybe just a few hundred by 2075. My brother, who has since passed away, my brother Richard, we used to kid each other, and he used to come up with this idea. He goes, you know, bro, when we get into our 80s, we'll just go down to CHamoru village and we'll charge people to hear us speak CHamoru to each other. So, well, that's a good idea. That's a money-making. That's better than Carabao rides, I think. But so it was a kind of a sardonic, but a kind of a realistic comment about that. A few years ago, Anne-Marie Arceo warned us that almost all the speakers of CHamoru are over 55 years of age. That was a few years ago. 2 months ago, Dr. Laura Sauder, chair of the Kumision Fino CHamoru, warned us that by 2060, there may be no CHamoru spoken. Naval Governor Dorn in 2010 wrote this. Na fan malak eskwela ifamagon midzo, mientras man papat gon, tasinya manedzak, da na fan gwagwatu lokwi gigimadzuus, pero fan sinanagwi no itsalanzuus, no ipaloy midzo, ni iman maulik na tauto. Con et tiempo, utinahwi ifino midzo, no ifino English. Tangin mandikiki ifamagon midzo pago, manhudung manguelo, dididi ha na Fino hadra umasangan, pues na fan edzak pago. Mientras mansinya no idono na Fino English, ni necesita para ufanungo mas. So that's an amazing statement. Think about that. That's an amazing statement. This is 2010. So these predictions are certainly not new, but CHamoru isn't extinct, but it may well be over time. It is endangered, and that's a tricky proposition to understand. It's like endangered species. You know, when we have an endangered species, and we have that all around us, you know, panihi, all the sihik, all these. So what we normally do is we think, how do we create a natural environment for these to continue to exist? The other thing we do is we're looking, we try to find the culprit. Who caused this? What made this happen? So in the endangered species, we find out it's the brown tree snake. And so now we're looking for the brown tree snake for Fino CHamoru. And a lot of us spend a lot of time looking for that brown tree snake. And then we find out that that brown tree snake, we have a lot of actions and policies. You see it all the time. You look it up, I'll say Executive Order 243 issued by Governor Roy Smith, where he demanded that everybody speak English. We look at that and we say, oh, that's it. We found it. No, they burned the dictionaries. No, they put in no Chamorro rules. No, they did this. No, they did this. And we spend all of our time looking for the brown tree snake that killed off or is killing off Chamorro. Now, I just don't think that's a useful use of our time. It's just not useful. But a lot of us get energized by that, so we spend a lot of time doing that. So I think Chamorros today probably has been the same feeling since the end of World War II. Do not generally believe that Chamorro language has any real value other than a kind of romantic symbol which we can love and adore, especially during Mes Chamorro. And but generally we can just ignore it the rest of the time. But other than Mes Chamorro, used to be un semana, it used to be Chamorro week. Now we've extended it by 3 more weeks. But, you know, basically it's just largely symbolic. So the question is, how do we generate more people? Well, the answer is easy. Just go to AI, artificial intelligence, and you can just enter it, as I did yesterday. How do I preserve the Chamorro language? And it gave me 7 steps, just like that. Well, I've heard all these steps before, but it was comforting to know that artificial intelligence could affect that. Yeah, you need cultural identity and heritage. It's intergenerational bonding. It's environmental and place-based knowledge. It's resilience against cultural erosion. It's intellectual and emotional expression. Use it in tourism and cultural tourism, and it has educational and cognitive benefits. Well, for those of us who have been involved in this a long time, it's really about that. But there's one thing that this project does that I think is really critical, and that's kind of a little bit difficult to explain. It is documenting first language speakers. That means that the people that are being interviewed knew Chamorro, maybe not exactly as their very first language, but they learned it enough so that you can say that it was their first language. Those people are walking around with a set of attitudes and knowledge in their head, which second language learners generally don't have. And what is that sense in their head? It's like a correction system that's implied. They used to say these rules are grammatically real. You know the grammatical rules without ever being taught the grammatical rule. And so that's because they learned it as their first language. When you learn something as your second language, you have to be taught rules because you don't know. They're not intuitive in you. So those are the speakers of Chamorro as a first language have that rolling around in their head. They know when something sounds right, and they know when something doesn't seem quite right. They don't know why, but they know it's just not true. They just know that there's something amiss in that. That's a kind of a grammatical sixth sense that first language speakers have. So our task was to document who these people are, note it down so that it can be further studied for future linguistic research. But it also should be an enduring lesson for second language learners. I tell you, I am so thrilled that there's so many hundreds of second language users of Chamorro today. It's a real thrill to do that. I'm talking to Chamorro speakers in their 20s and 30s, which was not possible 20 years ago because they're learning it. But I'm wondering in the back of my mind, what are the intuitive rules that they're using in the application? And then what will that Chamorro look like in 25 years or in 50 years? So that's why this process is important. That's why it's critical. And that's why I think it's a great project. Thank you very much. Are we going to call you back up? Okay, so just to tell you a little bit more about the project, I want to first of all recognize Dr. David Ruskin. Of course, he and I are sort of co-PIs on this project, but you know, I don't know it. I don't know much about linguistics. He knows everything about linguistics, and I'm just a kind of a fellow traveler, you know. And so I'm amazed at his level of knowledge. And we have Janice Toves, and we have Fran Napati with us as well in the project. So I'm just grateful for his work and his interest. And I have to say this, not meant to be an aspersion on anyone else. He's the first linguist that I've seen at the University of Guam who took an active interest in the Chamorro language. So, Dr. Ruskin.
Marvelous, thank you. And thank you for that introduction. Although I feel we should have coordinated a little bit more beforehand because I'm going to repeat some of the things that you just said, but maybe we can skip some of the bigger ones. Oops. A little while ago, I was chatting with a member of the deaf community, and one of the things that's interesting about the deaf community is that the genetics of deafness, most of the people who are born deaf are born to hearing parents, and they don't always know before the child is born. And so often they will learn a signed language at the same time they're teaching it to their children. So essentially, the child grows up as a second language speaker. And the person I was chatting with said that the children who are born deaf to deaf parents, now those are the ones who grow up using the sign language and become the poets and the philosophers and the actors and the bards of the community. And the reason I bring this up is because I was sitting yesterday at lunch with a Chamorro who was lamenting that as the number of first language speakers declines, the poetry of the language, the philosophy of the language is being lost. And so that's the first point I wanted to make, is that languages are really more than just collections of words and rules for putting together those words. They are storehouses of cultural information. And as you lose speakers, you lose that cultural information, which is why it's so important to preserve some of that. Languages today are having you mentioned a really tough time. The forces of globalization, industrialization, colonialization have reduced the power of many languages, and we are facing an extreme period of language endangerment and loss. This is a map from the Endangered Language Project. Each of these dots represents a different language, and each of these languages is endangered. We're likely to lose half of the approximately 8,000 languages by the end of the century, more or less. And part of the reason that there's a more or less around that is that there's a lot of different ways of trying to figure out what makes a language endangered. There are tons of different scales. UNESCO has its own scale. Ethnologue has its own scale. The Endangered Language Project, the map I was just showing you, has its own scale, which is sort of based on the UNESCO scale. And there's dozens of others, but the central thing that unites all of these is that the key factor is intergenerational transmission. Unless you have children growing up and using the language, then that's it. And so we can think about that in terms of Chamorro use. If you ask a person here on Guam, who are the Chamorro speakers, they'll say, well, you know, Panamku mostly. You say, well, what about Manhoban? They say, no, not so much. This is more than just intuition. We scraped the census numbers, and if we go back to the war generation, almost the entire Chamorro population identified as Chamorro speakers. But then starting in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you can see a precipitous decline in the percent of the Chamorro population which considers themselves to be Chamorro speakers. And projecting this forward, it looks grim. So this is that breakdown of intergenerational transmission. And we can say pretty definitively Chamorro is increasingly endangered. But then what? Where do we go from here? What can we do about this? Well, within documentary linguistics, there's sort of been two approaches historically. One is to archive, and often that meant you take a grad student, you send them out to a community, they make some recordings, some interviews, they come back, they write their dissertation and a grammar, and it goes in a library. But the field realized that this wasn't necessarily helping the communities to which those languages belong. And so there's been a big push in more recent years to not only document, but to build local capacity engagement. And that sets the stage for this project, we sought to do both of these things, to collect interviews and information from those speakers for whom it is still a first language that represent the poetry and the philosophy of the Chamorro language at heart. And then also to help share that information and build back up in the community whatever we have found. The project itself, it was a National Science Language Foundation funded grant in the Documenting Endangered Language program. And so this is a grant to document Chamorro as an endangered language. It was also supported by the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences through some grants, which we are very thankful for as well. We worked closely with a lot of different groups, both here on island and off. I would like to thank them and acknowledge them right now: the Kumision Fino the Department of Education, the Chamorro Studies Program, the Micronesian Area Resource Center. You will hear from some of these folks later today in terms of their contributions, so I'll leave that for them. But also the CHachalåni archive in Hawaii. This is one of the few archives that the NSF has labeled as a trusted archive for Native materials, for indigenous materials, because they say this is an archive which is set up to last a long time and really understands what the purpose of this sort of thing is. We worked with two different consulting linguists off island, Dr. Andrea Perez-Croker, who is an expert in documentary linguistics, particularly as pertaining to indigenous languages, and Dr. Sandy Chung, who is an expert in Chamorro grammar. And if they're watching, hi. I know we've got some people, we're live streaming currently, and I know there's some people watching from across the world. So welcome everyone who's not here as well. The project itself was intended to be about 3-year project, but then COVID happened and the super typhoon happened and we were struck by delay after delay. But ostensibly here was sort of the outline. In the first year, we talked to these Chamorro experts, the Kumision members, the members of the Chamorro Studies Department, and they helped guide us towards things that they felt were aspects of the language that were in most danger of being lost. What were the things that younger speakers were not using? So maybe we could focus our project a little bit more on those. And then the second big part of the first year was to train documenters here so that after this project ends, we would have a group of people who are able to understand documentary linguistics and to continue the work even after the grant runs up. Year 2, collect interviews, and we tried as much as possible to target speakers who had some sort of niche cultural knowledge. Again, because as languages lost, cultural knowledge also goes with it, and so things like traditional crafts, traditional medicine, and so forth. After a while, we actually just sort of were like, well, this person's a really nice speaker. They've got that poetry, and so we extended that a bit. And one of the things we're hoping to do in the future is to not only target the older speakers, but also some of the younger speakers as well, so that we can make cleaner statements about how the language is changing and the ways in which grammar is being used by younger generations too. So if you're a Chamorro speaker between the ages of 18 and 50, I'm calling those younger speakers, please talk to us later. We're still going through the IRB on that, but we would love to record you later. And then year 3 is to take those materials that we'd collected and to translate them, transcribe them, and to add grammatical information so that scholars who don't know anything about Chamorro can still take these materials and understand them and make comparisons against other languages and increase the amount of scholarship around Chamorro. Then plus social media outreach, things like the symposium today. Thank you all for being here. Our documenters, this was our group. I see 1 or 2 of you here today. Good to see you guys. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. Hi, Nolan. And we could not have done this without you. Thank you. It really was an amazing part of the project to work with you. To tell you a little bit more about the training, I'm going to invite Senior Janice Toves up, who was part of this class and who has also served as the data manager for this project over the last 5 years. You have been an amazing part of this. Thank you. We could not do this without you.
Si Mega Besongan. Lo Guahu si Jangan Dan. Mega na kinalamtin gibadan training. Pano Guam si Dr. Ruskin. Lo Fortna recorder. Masaya after mano ni Maulik ni na dengan Maulik puminot Samoru. ti Bali and ti Majemi i-record button. Gimagay, tinito, no? Pues in pila todo, in tungo po todo do si Mars, dan si Rose, sinyali, ano ka naman po siya, lo? Dapat, sinya, kung nota nila chota siya, atan zupan, luanzo, lo malika, le tatogi si mona. Lo na magupesti na class sa sinyatali I tiningoy I tautano za I Fino niya muzong za anmonadan hit zan I recorder ni mas importante izi na monoit para iinadingan. Sinyaw ligo ni si Mars zan si Matao zan gisang tati si Janice ha ekunguk iinadingan. I mas maulik na to so I mas met good na to so no an pon hunguk I hafalelik niya pues na siguro na maulik I mic placement dan masaya hapa at gi background I mas importante na to so desi niya muna maulilik I inadingan. Pues Gordon si Jer integration halong class pues an monazan ti ano guni lo megay na cuantos horas ni inrikoi in pila dan in tugi papa I finaisin siya. Ti only guni lo meganya na tempo gi I finaisin siya. Sabi, tana siguro ni na maulik todo I finaisin sa an pon patatong gisan met na isay na binun tungo palalik mo tisinya un lat sinya un lati lo ti maulik binun hasu maulik ko kino mo tani finota pues Stephen ni na inadingan tan si señor Bill Polino kay Stigwini pues an monotonit manuit para ilan pinya pon hunguk inadingan después pon tugi papa westa untungos transcription na banda pon hunguk kada afa iti afa ilalik niya ni I-interview tani consultant lo may guidance na tetsu mommy ginin sinya si David.
So timeline transcripts work sort of like subtitles in a movie where audio comes to a certain point, you see the words at the bottom of the screen and they're aligned in time. Here we've got the same sort of thing. We've got an audio sort of stream up at the top, and then down below this first line, consultant sentences, that's what the audio is saying, so that's sort of like the subtitle. But then we've got a bunch of other information as well. We've got the translation at the bottom. And then for scholars who might not know CHamoru, we break down any of the bigger words here. So break down the morphology. And this is sort of the gold standard in linguistics. This is the thing that allows us to share information between different scholars and share across languages. And since you mentioned AI before, this is also one of the things that AI is trained on, to know sort of what the bits and pieces of CHamoru are, so that in the future, things like ChatGPT can do a better job with CHamoru. I was using it just the other day, asked a question about CHamoru, and then it started speaking to me in Spanish. So I was like, this is not quite there yet.
Na banda no debida tatungo tamano mapolo inadingan gi na klasin storage archives mas importante sa angagi inadingan gi archives Sinya mausa gi mamala na tempo. Pues ejemplo, sinyangli debitan tatungu unique todos di sinyangli na megagay antes di pon dengan jani consultant pari designer deminon tungu deminon sangan todo di ja aginon ondantias di sinya I mamala na toton di poma punguk sa poma atan maulik sinya matungu mongi monu hozi dan pegwi muna mamaulik ina dengan dan tamanu pon soda untungus ta nayan hozi dan puthopa da
One of the important things as well was to make sure that anything that we acquired and recorded and transcribed is placed in open archives so that they're available to the CHamoru community for perpetuity, but also to scholars around the world so that this material is easy to access and will help bolster scholarship on the language. We'd like to show you just some of the products and some of the ways that we've been able to use these materials. Again, the central part of this grant was training the local group of Chamorro speakers in documentary linguistics. And so having done that, we feel that really was the big accomplishment. But then also those time-aligned transcripts are really useful and we wanted to show them off. So you can access some of these materials. We're going to show you at CHachalåni.com, which is the project website, and then a side project which came out of this, diccionario.com, which came with the blessing of the Department of Chamorro Affairs. Let me just open this up. There we go. So on our project website, we have not only information about the project, the symposium, archives, and so forth, but we've got a link to our consultants, and we've got the whole list of them here. And so any of the project audio is linked. The Elan files that we were working on are linked, at least as far as we have done. They take a long time to process. So many of them are still in process. And then last week or 2 weeks ago, I started working on a transcript viewer. So online, you can hear the audio. Hopefully my audio is connected here. And they are linked to the transcripts. You have a different views, text and translation, or the time link components. So if we don't have audio. Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me check something. Preston, why don't we do this? Well, while we're rebooting that, why don't we can always come back to do this later. I'll invite up Dr. Monique Storie and Ryan Shook to talk in the meantime, and they can tell us about the libraries and some of the archiving that we've been doing with them. Sizu esmasi, everyone. I'm going to give this a try.
Okay, I'm going to misdirect you guys over here so he can do what he needs to do.
Sleight of hand.
In the libraries, since about 2018, we've been focusing on two approaches to cultural learning. And this is coming from when we were first starting up the idea of island wisdom within the university. I was looking at UNESCO's approach to how to encourage cultural learning. And so it goes off of two practices. One is preservation and the other is practice, active practice. And so we were looking at how do the libraries or how should the libraries be engaged in both. And so that gave us a two-pronged approach. The first preservation was knowing what was in our in our archives at MARC and making them available so that people could actually use them. The other was to find partnerships where we were able to begin to engage in documentation and look at ways that we can increase access. And so it led to what we called the digital Guafak. And so Ryan will explain a little bit about that.
Half a day, everyone. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be able to speak about our project with you and share what it is all about. I actually was talking to Dean Monique earlier about how earlier with the slight technical difficulties, it relieved a lot of pressure because we have so much amazing speakers before us, such a tough act to follow and so knowledgeable in their fields. So half a day, everyone. Again, my name is Ryan Shook. I'm the digital librarian at University Libraries, and I work to connect RFK and MARC's endeavors and work with partners and try to bring digital integrity to projects through documentation, through presentation, digital exhibition, and we've built databases to showcase that. Oftentimes when trying to do what we do and explaining to stakeholders and grantors, it's been a challenge to get them to understand what we want to accomplish, what we're trying to do, what it looks like. So right now I want to give the big shout out to YMLG, Young Men's League of Guam, because that was one of the foundational projects that launched us to have a adequate product to show others and go, like this, and they go, oh, you see the light bulb go off in their head. And so today I want to show you guys how to get there from the UOG homepage. So at uog.edu, and everything that I'm showing you, you can also do it on your cell phone. It's mobile compatible, so it works on desktop, cell phone. What else do we have that's mobile? Like your iPad. I know my dad really likes to use the iPad. For some reason, it's the the preferred medium for a lot of people. So from the UOG website, we're located under research, and you'll find University Libraries Digital Team. Okay, so we started with the YMLG, and then later we got to do the enhancing the digital Guafak. And we configured this page to be mobile compatible in the way that, how do I say this? This site page, it's based off the template that UOG has, but we try to configure it in a way that the main page is fixed, and then it has this sub nav, because I notice on the iPad with my dad is my test subject going, how is it? Oftentimes, if you click on a website, then you go, how do I get back, right? So they have a difficulty with that. So I thought if we have a fixed page and when you're clicking and it can be changing, but on the same page, they don't feel lost. So one of my tasks is also, how do we take this information and deliver it in that digestible format in which a wide range of ages is able to use it and feel comfortable with it? It's very straightforward. You have your projects, giving a face to the team here. And submissions, this is a key one. I'm going to click this one. This is the only clickable link that doesn't have a link back to the main page, so be aware of that. It has a downloadable PDF. You can either print this thing out or fill out a digital copy. And this is how we're handling the requests that come in. And it gives us a way to document all of these requests and assess what kind of formats are coming in, whether they're analog things like cassette tapes or things that need to be scanned, or they're born digital items, things like PDFs, things that are already in that digital format for us to ingest and preserve. Okay, so I'm gonna leap back to projects. Featured on this page, we have our database, the Omeka CMS. And this is a database that exists outside of the university page, but we've linked it through the About navigation. So if someone is trying to find out more about us, you click About and it links back to the page here. And although this says you can click the link below, the link is so small, right? So on their iPad, they would want to click something larger. So even the images are clickable. Okay. We also have our application, the checksum checker. This is meant to bring to ensure digital integrity from originals to copies. Sometimes when you're trying to triplicate or copy or archive from one place to another, you want to be sure that the copy is the same as the original. I'm trying to hold back on the technical stuff because I get caught up in it. I'm so about that. So these are all tools for digital preservation to ensure that these copies and that there's not a generation lost in the digitized items. If any of these things are going over your head, feel free to contact me, triton.uog.edu, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. So questions about digitization, how do we do exhibitions? How do we get things preserved, digitized, digitizing audio, digitizing documents? Please contact me and I would be happy to be your partner in that endeavor and try to assist in the technical aspect. One of the things that is always comes up as an issue being audio, and I also have an expertise in um, analog to digital conversion when it comes to audio. So I would love to help with that. And we university libraries would like to be your partner in that. It fulfills our mission. This is our mission to help preserve. So very thankful to be invited today to speak with you about that. Okay.
So I told you that the second portion is actually the active practice of. And so at the Mark Library, what we engaged in was a collaborative project that actually served as a bouncing off of this project that's that we're talking about today. In that two of the apprentices under this program then became associates and mentors to train additional language and culture documentary researchers. And the idea is in order to continue increasing the capacity of people documenting language, documenting cultural activities, practices, and then making them available for research on language so that it can be used in the development of new educational projects, as well as for higher level research here at the university, so that we can integrate more language-based research in the Micronesian, in the master's level. And then hopefully our vision is to get a doctoral level research component here at the university. So what you're seeing scrolling are some of the examples of the collections that we have. Some of them are, as we spoke earlier, the YMLG, which took the educational resources that were available through the Guam Department of Education, as well as the CNMI public school system that were written in CHamoru, scanned them and made them available for individuals to use. The eventual plan for the digital Guafak is to have everything arranged using the exhibition portion so that we may have a collection that is like on traditional seafaring or traditional fishing practices, so that it almost serves like a one-stop location for people to start doing their research. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Tuus Maasi. We wanted to try just the live example one more time, but barring that, then we'll take a few minutes for questions from our morning speakers, and then we'll take sort of a 2 or 3 minute break just to stretch legs and so forth, and then we'll come back for part 2 of the day where we'll hear from many of our speakers here in front. Yeah, we have audio. There's a question.
Tagi pesca na zuzu nigi fresh school after zuzu masasangan pago organic. Tisina on fan ya zuzu peles.
You can't really see, but it's highlighted as well, and it follows along.
Mas para estina klasin tu para mas son sige mo na pesca na tutu.
Pues tagi anay hobino tatitizi familako. Tagi pago por ejemplo gagagya sta taubio. Amku sta za tisina tisina humano humesca. Pues pago na kumu malago ya zuzu mahanozo.
etc. So we have a lot of really lovely stories. This is something that you were saying you've been able to integrate into your classroom, which has been really great. So, and then the other thing that I wanted to show you just briefly was that we have tried to start taking some of these examples and integrating them into the dictionary as well. So the dictionary site has all the usual sorts of things, you know, searching. Great fish, something like that. Also has what are those called? Oh yeah, you can browse with other words around if you prefer just sort of reading the dictionary if you're one of those weirdos, as well as special character sorts of things. So if you remember, all right, well I know there's a fish that starts with A. You can do A star, has to do with fish, and you'll get some results there. It's like, oh yes, agon. No, that's a soup. Never mind. Agua. Lovely.
Binaharam gwini da esti na kolasin totu nap mago da nap mago dai. Sa mega na pinihusya da mega gi debidita kuri and ma transfer guatu pari digital sinya matulai kagweza esti mommy.
Yeah, part of the reason for doing this was also my students kept saying, like, you know, we have CHamoru dictionaries, but they're at home. It would be great to just have a really accessible site where we can go. Like I was saying, we're also introducing excerpts from the transcripts that we have, and so we've started introducing these where you can play live examples and have them in context.
Pues en 22 años y media, lugar na manggayam.
We've also then started linking all of the tagging so that if you have questions, you're like, all right, well, can I get more information about this? Then it'll take you to the other entries and so forth. And so we hope to bring as much of those transcripts into the dictionary so you have examples in context as possible to help enrich the information. Okay, thank you for that. Let's take a few minutes for questions from our morning speakers. If you have questions for either Dr. Underwood, myself, Senior Toves, or Dean Storie and Ryan Shook, we can bring the microphones around.
Situs mas ini penantin mizo. Imas maput guni na totu sa hutung na gagi istina klasin totu gihina sa mapa mi mas maput. transcription.
Yeah.
In transcription, sinya 5 minutos, sinya panan 2 pa 3 oras pon pulai dan pon aligo half a day lelek niya si Tun Mariano sa tungo to gusto paycheck pitugi si Dr. Underwood pitugi paycheck todo i klasin pan finihudsan ni gaigi ilo itano sa tungo half a lelek niya si
And-
gimodong niya gaigi Biblia.
And, and then the grammatical tagging takes even more time. So the NSF, we said we'd collect 50 hours of interviews. They said, all right, well, try to transcribe and translate 10% of that and tag just 10% of that 10%. So that ends up being about half an hour of grammatical tagging that they wanted us to do over all the interviews. And we far exceeded that. We're intending to do as much as we can by the time the project ends, but to help to benefit the scholarship of the community. We will keep working on these as much as possible, even after the grant runs up. I still intend to keep working on these in my spare time, and even though we won't be paid, no end in sight.
Policy niya integrity mamala na kinalamtin no sinya manmonggis o grant dan ponadto dahil por favor sa tisinya gawa. Si Diyos masing.
Let's take a brief break and we'll be back in 3 minutes. Okay. All right, we're going to start back up again. The first people that I would like to invite to the podium, we'll start with the Kumision members. And so today we've got with us, they're a little bit distracted. We have Rosa Palomo and Auntie Hope Cristobal, who will be telling us a bit about the projects that are going on with the Kumision. And I will let them introduce some of the other members of the Kumision that we have with us. I know there's a number in the audience. If I can welcome you to the stage.
Team is the tag team. By who introduce Fino na a vice chair, a Kumision ni Fino CHamoru, si Senora Hope Alvarez Cristobal.
And si Rosa Salas Palomo. Visa Meheri language. No. Visa
Committee.
mas language committee lo visa mas in spipia sa no ulat tiningo niya mas kihami ni manggay kiyam gi board pues no agad ku inango ku itiningo niya zano utungo ha na pudi put visa naman maktuham so
Puedes en half a day todos hamzo. Ay tipereo sin a half a day de nizila lenya si Dr. Underwood gilataf. Okay. Pues melas tatituhu ni itinanga zan i parivision ifino i Kumision ni Fino CHamoru. Gage agwini hulu. Pues i tinanga. Ogun so ogun tinanga.
okay. Tinanga fintutuhan ni meeting mommy tori tempo in sasangan nesti. CHachalåni usuon mo na dan hot konuzi linala itsamoro u uta atitutuzi ikinahulu tinautaw dan upetsigi ifino CHamoru ilinala dan ifinalofan itautaw tano guahan. Pues no gagaloki if you know English, we lead needing nation building efforts to ensure the continuity of our Chamorro peoplehood and nationhood by fostering the restoration and revitalization of our language, culture, and history as Guahans Tautautano.
I up arrow road? No, I up arrow? By Jemmy? Yagapa? Oh, okay. Okay. I otro ni insetsegwi ang ginintutuho ni ihintan mami. Después antes di itinanga, ito di tempo insasangan i manhula gi Fino CHamoru or i CHamoru pledge, I guess, mapananaan ni tiningi Señora difunta Dr. Dunca. Pues, 15 minutos sa manain tempon mami sa kalanlamigay na project, pues para ben siya pumasalista papa, okay? Está? Okay. Pues si finene na ipuri website, waha website, i-commission, zanu estina website, hapa siya mahumuhuzong ginini komisyon, pipiga hulo, ko sa kisina itautog bihigi ni umaata ni website, sina masoda, sina ma-espia, dan o holara mohon masoda hafa mas-espia. Estigi siya i-objective i-website, as menta siga mo na, siga loki manalalaw ulit mo na. Okay, per scrolly telling, kana ileko ko misspelling estilo, ahit misspelling. Sa siga un scroll papa, manakeke, gifino English attractive, is kosa kisinya guna umbaba, malago ho na pong kontinua, pero ang ginasa, za o kontinua mo na, no guahasya no menus ni sinya talo scrolly papa then ano siya na klase then link siya, okay, i otro ni sinya tika babalis todo matsogi lo sempia manakikihalom para lakabalis i website i multimedia archive genealogy documento siya word finder i-project siya, i-project to siya, and, hafa siya gwinahan niya i-komisyon. Social media, Paraguay esti sa tigaf social media oriented so, Instagram, lokwe, it's gwina mapipiga i-Fino siya ni manhuhuzong, zan kantodo recording, zan kahalo kwe no gi YouTube siya man mapipiga hudo. Ejemplo po di social media.
Ifinohaani no ifinohaani waha staff humeher estilo no it involves the whole community in developing the language skills as they are challenged to use the Fino Ha'ani in conversation. The recommended terms are vetted by the Fino committee. It is headed by Rosa, and subsequently you'll see it in the Guam Daily Post, the legislative channel, and other commission social media platforms on a daily basis.
Guahalo ke gwini gi Fino Ha'ani gi social media no ma-record. Mapipiga guaha no sumasangan ipalabra and isinangan sa magwaha ihemplo siya. Kalan ko maririram gwini ha sa tigofan ako ko tempo.
Ininapit ni CHamoru Immersion certificate. Estas din monazan no cohort 2 esta no lamigay man magradua gwini na that we hope to have more people.
We just ma-fondo ni art funds, right? Or especially sina grupon sa lapit. Sa fanan guahan no kalang guahan di celebration ni otro semana no fanan ginin i cohort. Okay. Este fanan uno. Oh, wait, check.
Mhm.
Cultural
There
dictionary.
were 10 lessons. We need, no, it just ended here in March. Si Bebop headed this and, so it's already been going on. And the cultural dictionary workshop. This is where we can get the, community involved. We need help with this because we are taking phrases and we're just expanding on the CHamoru proverbs and sayings that are different from the first. We have a second volume that's already done, and we have embarked on the third volume already. So we're going to need a community support for this.
Dr. David said something earlier, language loss equals language, cultural loss. One of the, at least to me, one of the very advantageous aspect about the cultural dictionary is this is one way that the cultural concept can be explained and also try to put in some examples of how these concepts are manifested so that our language learners not being the second language learners not necessarily being exposed to first language in the Chamorro language can better understand what are these cultural concepts and how they are manifested within our culture. Because if you just take the literal translation, you miss the boat. You've missed the boat for many of our kids.
So
But it's hard work.
yes, it is. It's only 96 pages, but we have both English and Chamorro. And we have included the UOG Chamorro class students, and they have contributed a lot of these sayings, things that I haven't heard myself. So we look forward, that's already done, it's already at the printers. Look forward to have, these are books that are free and they are down at the Kumision, but we haven't yet received these books yet. The orthography, the Chamorro orthography, that one we need, all of us need the help of this book. It's really, the 2024 version is user friendly and it's going to be available online and it can be downloaded from the Kumision website, which is kumisionchamorro.guam.gov.
I always like to point out that this particular version, this particular publication by the Commission is probably the fourth publication on Chamorro orthography. We took the 1988 one and then made changes with it, printed it out, and then made some more changes. And then this particular publication is the result. I do have to caution everybody, and I feel that it is very important that as the days go by and we go through the orthography, other things come up. And so what you have, what's in here is good for now. It may not be good for tomorrow in some areas, not everything, because we are also learning in this process. And things come up, questions are asked, and then we have to deal with those questions in terms of trying to make it more, not just accessible, but also easier to understand so that we don't have what Janice said earlier that, or Dr. Ruskin about, not people didn't, the project participants didn't necessarily know how to spell Chamorro. But, for me, as long as they can speak it, that's the start. And then we'll work on the spelling.
We have some flashcards that are already done and they're just waiting for delivery from the printer. You can see mock-ups here. These are for second language learners, but also can be used by primary school children. The syllabary tiles, that's going to be interesting. That should already be done. Fino CHamoru is shown here. As you know, the spelling for CHamoru is CHamoru.
We hope that it would help with the spelling process.
Piniroro Nini nursery rhyme book. That should be done in a couple of months and should be released. We are happy about that. That's done by Antonia Manibusan and Anne-Marie Arceo, Piatra Tunta, Lucia Calvo, Dakota, Camacho. And it's waiting for the purchase order.
You know
So-
how slow purchase orders are.
The interactive, the QR code, I'm gonna rush through this because time already.
Oh,
Our QR code, you know what, if you don't know how to use a QR code, let us know. Guahui Magatauto. Yeah. Whose project is this?
it's ours. Oh, Cedar Grove, thank you, Chris.
Oh,
Poet-
that
We have
Dakota's?
poetry
Oh,
and
go ahead.
we are on, we do have, we started out with the first Pictionary a couple years ago, and then there was a volume 2. But you can tell from volume 1 to volume 2 that there were changes in the spelling as well. This is part of this process. And so, we accept it as long as we know where the errors, not errors, but where we were, there would be errors. Then we just make the corrections in the next publication. We don't try to carry forth what it is that went wrong. It's really, the Pictionary is really very colorful. I have to say, it's very attractive. And that was one of my things early on in my educational career, is that, so many of our publications of our books were not necessarily in color, and they were in black and white. And after, with all the technology and all the things that are coming out in color, the color was very important, at least to me. And I'm glad that we finally got it. So we have to stop. So let's go right through. What else do we have? Inanumi?
It's about a young girl who is curious about her name, but that she learns what it means and how to plant, cultivate, and harvest her favorite vegetables in her family's gualo. It's meant to engage children in their own journeys of planting what they consume and understanding more fully the relationship between themselves, the land, and food sovereignty. Children's book will be released in a few months.
And I'm going to skip because we already have the stop sign. Kohunhunguk is our financial report for the last 5 years. In Magaplano, this is what moves us forward in what it is that we need to do and hold us accountable. The genealogy, I think, is one of the more exciting things that we have in the commission. And, we're working with Mr. Ponzalan, and then also with the university, the Mark genealogy room, documents as well. We've had training. We had a really excellent workshop last year on this. It was well attended.
List and Palabra. This
There
is
we go.
one of our very important projects. We are working on the CHamoru English Dictionary. Ana Garcia's original compendium is listed in here, Toppings and Dunkas and August CHamoru English Dictionary, and the official CHamoru English Dictionary by Dr. Agun. And by the way, she's still alive. And published by the Department of Chamorro Affairs, this database of root words and their most popular affixed forms. It's going to be all this. The experts involved are Janice, Toves, Jeremy Cepeda, Daniel Pangilinan, and Senora Ann Rivera.
And just a couple more and then we'll stop. Really, we'll stop. CHachalåni is an exciting project because now this is recording second language speakers of tomorrow. And it can easily dovetail into what Dr. Ruskin was talking about earlier. So I find this very exciting. And once we collect the data, and then the Lenaxi are fluent speakers of tomorrow that are recorded. We have 6, and it is, all in tomorrow. And the Na'an Lugat project, I think this is one that Dakota, Dr. Underwood, Senora Terry, Flores, and Senor Jimmy are members of that committee. And this is where we look at place names and try to come up with how they are actually pronounced indigenously. And I think we're at the end. Yeah. Right? Yes. So this is how much they've done interviews. And now there are some villages that are now, they're going through the process so that they can be, what is the term? Dr. Underwood, the term the legislature has to do? Put them in law. Right, so that hopefully we don't just, we have matter, but have matter. Yes, that. And to close,
Place name.
we have 3 staff members that are here, Lucia Calvo, Lucille Lizama, and Elarita Cruz. They're mostly in the back, and there they are, yes, or at the table. So thank you for coming this morning. Thank you, everybody.
Lucille.
Masi.
Lucille.
Oh, Lucille is our
Media person.
media person.
That's it, Zusmasi.
Translation services. Okay, Dr. Ruskin, we have stopped.
Since the Kumision has co-hosted this event, I was not going to cut them off. These are many, they're beautiful projects that you have that you've been working on, and thank you for presenting those with us. Senor Teria, I'd like to welcome you here. Department of Education. We've been chatting a lot, but he's going to talk to us about the immersion programs that we're trialing and hopefully pressing forward with. So, Senor.
Oh, apa day? Setus masih pun organ tu magi. Let me just plug in, and as I plug in, I can fill in. Pues talong biay dångkolo na situs masin convida to magin ni papay for presenter. Just a small gesture of how we've come to be with Fanitoken. And can we say it all together? Uno, dos, tres, sangat. And so we have utilized Fanitoken to equate to CHamoru medium education, but loosely translated. We've also just tried to add to the 50 years, add to everything that our people have gone through. And really, it's been a very experience in trying to bring CHamoru medium education to the Guam Department of Education. And so again, dångkolo na situs masa, I want to recognize our partners, Chief Rao Academy, because without them, we wouldn't have been here today sharing this story. And this one is a very long story. I remember at a special conference in 1999 that our leaders promised a school in CHamoru I believe it was an intergenerational conference down, I think somewhere in the Hilton, and they promised a school, and this was when, even before I started teaching, and I'm only 26. So, yeah, it's been a while. Pues Hafa Fanidzaken. So Fanidzaken is a CHamoru medium immersion program. And really it was through partnerships and through a lot of leveraging within the Guam Department of Education to bring this form of education as really something that has brought on a lot of fruits. I mean, all programs bring fruits, but this one, for some reason, has a very special place for all of us. And it has been a very, good work. And so we were really fortunate to get a policy going. This is really the genesis of bringing the program to fruition, because it's very difficult to move things within the Guam Department of Education if there is no policy. So this is what really sustains us. I remind our people in the Guam Department of Education why we need to continue this. And we mandate CHamoru. We've been teaching CHamoru for 50 years. So why not something a little different? And so in 2019, we embarked because Chief Rao started their Nene Academy in 2018, and our children didn't have anywhere to go. And so we really worked hard to bring this program to fruition. And so you'll see some pictures. Sometimes it's a little wordy, but it gives you some idea of where we've been. And so Mononagaigi, Fanidzaken, and Fanidzaken is there at Tun Pedro Camacho Lujan Elementary School. And here's the first cohort in some of their activities. And because we've co-located with our partners, Chief Rao Academy, to create that special space of CHamoru learning. And then how Taimanu is the Fanidzaken. And so this was our mission that we've developed again with our partners as we created our Magaplano. And I have a timeline of how long this project actually has taken to get it to where it's been. And you'll see how long really have we been trying to get here. And so now we're at fourth grade. We've got 52 students from kinder to fourth grade. And next year, the parents are holding me, with my words. And so we're going to open fifth grade, and we're going to have the teacher. And we are doing everything to ensure that it continues. And, people always say, well, how much does it cost to implement this program? And you'll be surprised how much we've invested even just carrying through with this program. And so next slide. So this gives us a timeline, because I knew I only had 15 minutes and I just wanted to concentrate on the core. And so it gives you a timeline of where we've been. And we have been very interestingly, we've been looking at this models since 2012. And with further investigation and through further research, we developed a CHamoru Immersion Master Plan in 2016. And then immediately after, we worked on policy. We worked with our partners. Chief Rao Academy has been our vendor in ensuring the Magaplano, the professional development, and our curriculum. And so we worked together through this process. And so in 2018, they opened their Nene Academy. In 2019, we opened. And here we are in 2024, and it's our 5th year of implementing CHamoru medium education. And so, again, the parents remind me that we need to continue with the plan. We need to continue with opening further grades. And we've already started the conversation to push through middle school. We've also started not just starting the conversation, but putting action, because I promise a lot of things. I tend to promise, but I think I've done a pretty good track record. And so we'll continue to have those conversations. And then hopefully within several more years, we'll have our first graduating cohort in 2031, 32. So we still have a whole lot more work to do. And so like we met with the parents just this Monday, and I always tell them, I say, you know, you guys have been doing a great job, but we need to do a greater job again next year. So, and that's why it's, I have to simply say that it's just it's a lot of work. There's very limited materials. If we didn't dust off the bilingual work that our Manyana have done, that's been our saving grace up until this point, because that's really what's been keeping the kids very literate. So it's a lot of work. And so why? And this has been the reason why. In 1990, there were 34,000 speakers. In 2000, there were 30,000 speakers. In 2010, there are 25,000 speakers. And in 2020, estimated there was only 21,000 speakers. And so we've all heard the data. And we have heard a lot of things. And I just want to close with this one, because Joshua Fishman, the great linguist, would always say, if we want to continue our language, if we want to continue that intergenerational connection, you need to take a look at what the child is doing before school, after school, during school. And so it just, if you can remind yourself of that, that's what it takes to save CHamoru. That's what it takes. And yes, schools help, but if parents, if we entrust just the Guam Department of Education to teach CHamoru, I'm going to tell you it's not enough. It takes a community of speakers. It takes really a community, a committed community to keep on keeping on. So, and just a short clip, hopefully it plays. And so this is our kids. So we're having a little audio tazagwa, but it gives you a glimpse of what the children are doing. This again is the first cohort, and it gives you a glimpse of what they're doing. They're just basically talking about the Carabao and the Billion. Lo, not maguf, kumu unhungu kifamagun man Fino CHamoru. Again, dångkolo na si Jules Masi for having us share this story. Si Jules Masi. Any questions? Oh, and then I was ready to blame. I was ready to blame that. Oh, try. Again, si Jules Masi.
also just. There we go. I'd also like just to say that from the field of linguistics, immersion education is one of the most tried and true ways of getting people to really speak a language. And so just to throw in my 2 cents, I think that that's a great way for the community to go forward. The education program embracing immersion education is really great to see, and I think there's a good future in us if we can get more support behind that. Dr. Ken Kuper, I would like to introduce to the stage. Dr. Ken has been jumping departments a little bit, political science previously, now over in the libraries, but has some follow-up projects that he would like to, or some related projects that he'll be talking to you about that will continue on similar work moving into the future.
All right, all right. Buenas. How we doing? Cherry. All right. So, half a day, everyone. I'm Ken Kuper. Today, I'll be talking, I'm over at the Micronesian Area Research Center now. But basically what I wanted to do is talk about 2 grants that I'm currently on that in a way serve as intellectual successors of the NSF grant, right? So I just want to give credence to the NSF grant in this whole presentation because there's a lot of overlap and they've left really a footprint for us to help take down a further in the road. So let's start with the ANA grant. So the latest statistic, as Jimmy mentioned, it's only around 21,400 people who reported to have spoken CHamoru. As many of us know, that number may also be inflated. It's not exactly rare for someone to report that they speak CHamoru because they know a few phrases here and there. Hey, Gimetenzus, Malago Mumo. Yeah, bro, I know CHamoru. So in reality, the number may be much smaller. Okay, so it's not the most uplifting statistic, but anyways, there it is. So the current state of the language necessitates that we as a community are equipped with the tools and the training to document CHamoru language and culture to help ensure its continuity. In the interview that we did with the Kumision before we applied for the grant, their members noted, quote, the limited number of people trained to document the language and culture slows the progress that they and the Department of Education can make in developing culturally significant learning materials. So this was the impetus for our grant application. So in 2022, our team received a $1.3 million grant from ANA, the Administration for Native Americans. The main goal for the grant was to train members of the local workforce to document and learn how to research CHamoru language and culture through collecting, analyzing, and piecing together CHamoru knowledge in Guam and the CNMI. I just want to shout out, we have some of our awesome grant participants here today in the back. Woo woo! And then we have Senor Matao, Daniel Pangilinan in the back over there. Let's just give them a round of applause for being part of this awesome project. Okay. So we believe that this grant will help contribute to the health of our language and culture by increasing the number of people who are aware of significant cultural practices and by increasing the number of culture and language resources the community can access to deepen their understanding of CHamoru culture, language, belief systems, practices. So the current grant team -1 is pictured here. Dean Monique, Storie, and I serve as principal investigators. Levon Meno serves as our financial officer. And then Dan and Jeremy Cepeda are research associates, and Adam Lanis is not in the picture here, but he's our research assistant. So after an interview process, you can see our recruitment flyer here, we ended up accepting around 19 people for the program. We're almost done with year 2, and we're still healthy at 14 active participants, so we're really happy about that. So how are we training participants? Well, in year one of the grant, we worked hard towards creating a training program that our participants are now in the middle of undertaking. So that was more the development of what we were going to do. And so we identified particular skills that our participants should be competent or skillfully fluent in by the end of the program. These were some linguistic theory and analysis, historical document analysis, research ethics, interviewing, translation, and transcription. Once the skills were identified, we subsequently looked at the existing UOG catalog for appropriate courses. While we were able to identify some, we also created new courses. So as you can see here, ED 385A, B, and C, there are 3 components of structure of the language. This was a long-time class taught by Dr. Dunca. CM 294 is a pilot course that we created called Historical Document Analysis. The participants did that last semester. And currently they're in CM 394, Translation and Transcription, along with ED 385B. They'll be taking ED 385C in the summer. And I know that Senor Matao we're going to finalize the time on that soon. But at the end of year 2, year 3 is actually really awesome because they're all going to be conducting a year-long research project, okay, to see how well they've integrated all of the skills they've learned. Do you guys have an idea of what you're going to do yet? They're like, oh, don't put me on the spot. And it is, so some of them have an idea of what they're going to do for the year-long research project, but we're going to work together. And by the end, we'll have a public symposium. And really, you're going to have, hopefully all 14 stay for it, but you'll have 14 amazing, well-researched documentation projects for our community. And that's the end goal. And then we provide more to this community. So let's see here. Yeah, so come and attend that if you don't mind. So with all this being done, what do we hope to achieve? Well, I think it's important to note that although our grant deals with the language and culture, we actually did not receive a language grant from ANA. We received a SEDS grant, or a social and economic development grant. Let me explain the logic behind that and our thinking. So we want to train additional homegrown researchers who can help reduce reliance on outside researchers' interests in language and cultural processes and increase our own community's ability to take control of Chamorro knowledge production and engage in community-based projects. This workforce will hopefully become the future writers and editors of Chamorro texts and resources. This is a very critical component of our grant. We want to train our own people here in the Marianas to conduct the important research needed for a vibrant Chamorro future. One that is not just hafadaying our way there, no? So second, this grant will help develop opportunities for those who speak the language and know how to conduct Chamorro research. A common thing we hear is that speaking Chamorro from an economic perspective does not offer any opportunities. Let's not, we hear that a lot. Maybe not amongst our choir here, but there are a lot of our own people who truly do believe this. So we hear that the language is good for culture and identity, but is useless for the job market. But in conversations with various stakeholders in Chamorro knowledge and education, this does not seem to be the case. We were told repeatedly, from GDOE to the Kumision to other stakeholders, that they have many projects they want to conduct, resources they want to develop, infrastructure they want to expand, but there simply aren't enough people who are skilled and competent enough to perform all of these different things. So we're hoping that this grant aims to address that workforce gap and challenge the idea that knowing the Chamorro language brings no economic benefit. So in addition to the ANA grant, I'm also serving as a co-principal investigator for another grant we received at UOG. So in 2023, we received a $900,000 grant from the Mellon Foundation to create a Chamorro Study Center here at the University of Guam. No, this does not mean a new building, okay? But the Intellectual Chamorro Study Center. So the co-principal investigators are myself, Dr. Francine Naputi, Dr. Mary Cruz, and Dr. Keisha Borja Kitsukalbo. We also have 2 research fellows, Nolan Flores, who's here today, and Cody Lazama. Our project director is Natasha Suba, and we have 2 teaching assistants, Caleb Cruz and Leila Kabilas. So we have a good team right now. So the center will serve as a hub for scholars to access resources, engage in collaborative research opportunities, and have a space to conduct long-term research projects. It will house materials that focus on the humanities related to language and cultural revitalization. So to meet this overarching goal, 3 subsidiary objectives will be met. Number 1, we are planning and executing a master apprentice language revitalization program for the center. We actually had our first meeting. Senor Cody Lazama is running the entire program, and you can see we have some of our masters, potential masters and apprentices here at the orientation training. So we hope to expand that. We will be helping second language learners with the kit, and of course, create an archive of existing Chamorro studies scholarship, as well as a directory of Chamorro scholars. Another thing that I should mention that we want to do is we want to do a sectoral, community sectoral based list of speakers in different professions, right? So we just started as part of the grant Orin CHamoru. Dr. Underwood was our speaker for the recent one that we just had on Thursday night. So pretty much it's an hour of different people coming up and speaking about various topics, all in Fino Chamorro. So what we want to do is, who are the lawyers that can talk about the legal system in Chamorro? Who are the doctors that can talk about diabetes in Chamorro? Who are those who are creating apps that can describe computer science in Chamorro? We want to make a list of all of these people so that we can have them come and speak before Orin Fino Chamorro and show that Chamorro language has no boundaries. A filmmaker, an author, a science fiction writer. We want people who speak Chamorro, who know and have these skills or professions, and we want a directory so that we can help push the boundaries of our language. The grant will also strengthen the existing Chamorro Studies program. So on this end, we have the following grant activities. First is the creation of 2+2 pathways between UOG and the 2 community colleges in the Mariana Islands. We're also, so pretty much if you do a bunch of your coursework at the community college, you can come in and finish the rest of your degree in Chamorro Studies, and we'll have articulation agreements. We're also developing a fully online version of the existing BA in Chamorro Studies. From the language to the cultural courses, all of it will be online 100%. For those who are not able to be here in Guam and take those courses, they're going to be there, and you can actually complete a Chamorro Studies degree from wherever you are. That's what this grant is allowing us to do. So, at the end of the day, in the past, Chamorro society, we built our homes on large stone pillars that we call lati, with the tosa and the haligi. The haligi served as the stone foundation that kept the lati upright, and the tosa was the cap placed on the top, which would be used to place the house. The work done to date by all of us has built the haligi, the community foundation for language and cultural revitalization. The work of both of these grants for us is to, 1, support and strengthen this haligi, and to 2, help to build the tosa in which the proposed home of Chamorro revitalization will rest. Together, these 2 grants, as successors to the NSF CHachalåni Motna grant, can help ensure that the home that our language rests never falls. Nadlatla ifinota si Zeus Masi.
Wow, so much going on. Not maguf. No, no. Dawa na be menciona Stephen na ba no na mausay palabra panedzakan. Gimit me 172 na sakan. And nagwaha programa entry universidad ni GDOE da mafanawin no Pino Chamorro gi kanan ulu 6 semana no 6 semana na tiempo. Eso nada más, fanan ginin li lo kwito na palabra gi tinigi pali roman. Lo. Okay. The other thing is just 2 items. One, we have one thing I want to call for Una Sanz, and I want to call Terrence Diego, and I want to call Dakota Camacho up here. And you guys have to go there, get your chair, and sit up here, because I'm too old to go get the chairs for you. Sure. Yeah, gofano que no sa paso por paso, va adelanto. Esto todo el tiempo ta que quejaso con un tiempo para tasar este lengua. Chesa na sita sa amdo na tres bobe togi gini ta amdo na tres no. Be inay candid kita hamzo. Two other things. One was the idea of the Fanedzakan, and you see these kids speaking Chamorro. The term shock language. It was like, for some people, it's a shock, you know. But the first time I ever heard the word shock language was I attended a teacher's orientation in 1972 for Guam Department of Education teachers off-island contract. These were not local people hired. I was an off-island contract. So I went to this orientation, and they had a session called Shock Language, and it featured two people just speaking Chamorro to each other, and then that was it. That was like we were supposed to get used to people speaking Chamorro to each other, and the two people who were speaking Chamorro to each other were Dingold and Tom Barcinas. So they're not with us anymore, so they are no longer in a position to shock us. But so we have to be shock ourselves. And I want to just bring a final point to the Kumision did a terrific job of outlining their things on the place names, just on the place names, which Dakota and I and Mr. Teria and Senora Flores are working on. The place names is the actual names of villages are under the legislature because they are district names. They are political jurisdictions, you know. How they frame that has an impact on taxes, voting, all those kinds of things. So that's why those names are under the direct control of the legislature. The other place names are under the control of the Kumision, but you know, that's like, you know, are people ready to give up Nimitz Hill Estates and go to Tiguac? Are they ready to do that? Can you force that? Are you ready to give up Baza Gardens and go to Maletzo? Are you willing to give up, I don't know what, up at Latte Heights? Are you willing to give up Jonestown? See, I've had the fortunate or unfortunate experience of having lived a long time in Baza Gardens and a long time in Jonestown. So I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get rid of these names? But those names, and so some of those names are sort of, you know, they're difficult, even though I would probably think that almost everybody in this room would be in favor. Yeah, let's get rid of Jonestown right now. But I don't know whether the people who live in Jonestown think that way. The point of this final concluding activity is to introduce three speakers who may not have grown up speaking Chamorro, but they're sort of comfortable in Chamorro now. And I just want to ask them some questions. So we'll go, and this mic work here? This works here? Oh, yeah. Está son documentos. Okay. Está gofamam documentos si Puna Sanz, si Terrence Diego, then si Dakota Camacho. So one of the things that's the most interesting phenomena here that we're undergoing is that, as you can tell by the work of the Fanedzakan, you can tell the work of the Kumision, tell the work of the University of Guam under these foundations and some more studies, is we're creating cadres of speakers, people who didn't grow up speaking Chamorro, so just kind of like wondering, what did they see and what do they see going forward? How do they think, you know, because everyone has a kind of a mental view or an imagination about what Chamorro consists of. So for those of us who came from homes where CHamoru was widely used, our view of CHamoru is really pretty clear. It's how your mother and your father spoke. It's kind of clear, you know, how they spoke, what they said, and you find yourself that you find as you grow older, you find yourself talking the way they did, you find yourself holding yourself the way they did, because that was your experience. But what if you didn't have that experience? So what is in your imagination about what constitutes Fino CHamoru? So that's an interesting thing. I'm really heartened by this. It's an amazing situation to run into, I think probably now in the hundreds of young people who speak better CHamoru than their parents. You know, I mean, that's like an amazing experience. It was like unthinkable when I was growing up that you would have people that would would speak better CHamoru than their parents. And so that's a phenomena. So what does that mean? Maybe it means nothing. Maybe it means that we should feel safe. But I wanted to ask, and we'll just go down the line. Okay. So just tell us about your CHamoru learning experience and what encouraged you and what discouraged you.
Hello, Fade. Okay. Hafade Guausi Fuuna Sanz. Ma estradzo gi fanizake, mananagwizo tetset gradu. So for me, I grew up with my grandma speaking CHamoru, and then my dad is actually a second language speaker. And he was the one that really wanted me and my brother to learn CHamoru. And then my mom was a first language speaker. So all three of them speaking to us is how I learned the language. But I feel like I grew up more bilingual. I learned CHamoru and English at the same time. And then when I went to school, honestly, it was so embarrassing to speak CHamoru because no one else spoke CHamoru. And then I became the girl that could speak CHamoru, and it's like, you know, everyone wanted me to speak CHamoru for them, like like it was a performance. So for me, I didn't like that I could speak CHamoru, and I would always ashamed, and I didn't want people to know. And that really didn't change until I became an adult, started going to UOG and learning about, you know, how important it is to be able to speak. But I was really lucky that my dad really pushed the language on us and wanted us to learn it. Because yeah, if he didn't, then I wouldn't be here today and I wouldn't have appreciated it later on. But it was really hard to grow up being a CHamoru speaker, going to public school, everyone speaking English. And it really, in the beginning, I was really ashamed to speak CHamoru. You know, I didn't have friends or cousins to speak CHamoru with. And so another thing too is that when I got older, you know, kids only know like the bad words in CHamoru. So I didn't know any bad words because the only people I spoke to were my parents and my family. And then later on, I started to learn the bad words. So even like experiences like that, where I don't even know CHamoru slang because I wouldn't use those words with my family. But that was my experience growing up.
Is this Moss? Hafade nanu si Terrence Diego, tauta na Lahanzo. Pinenana malagabe sangan Biba San Jose, pagugwa y fiestan San Jose, pues Paraguajo distiki or ti distiki, and I been ti 8 años jo, ti sinya jo femina tomorrow, distiki 28 años jo, ja malagabe sangan guados gat songho ni umiskwela gi programan eskwela Hurao, adult immersion program. Pues dumanya hit un puengi ja uhongok na mamfino CHamoru idos, pues hana interesado, pues keke estotba pagugwa isagroku si sana guanifi. Sa hungan hana interesado, pues you know, hasta 28 años ya guías Fino, you know, Dr. Underwood tisinya ka na half a day torudu. Pues para be songan na enao ginin eskwela Hurao na sinya be songan In my adult age, I constantly marvel at the fact that it's literally a dream come true to in my adult age be able to speak my native tongue, and to just masi.
Hoffe finasen mo, talo, dispensa to. Hoffe finasen mo. Basta hoffe aday, inaano si Dakota, Camacho, za tau mong mong, zan tom homzo, lo magay na dångkolo di San Lago. Matuzo gwini di finet na biyahe di 2011 nasakan di gwin nasakan hu nabububu si Dr. Underwood mega na tempo nasita na lo magat lo quick sa and matuzo gwini di ini na tano sinyo li na guaha mega na minakat I tau-tauta. Kulan guaha masangan di otra na tau-tau na colonization mamat soul wound indigenous na tau-tau. No? Pues di dångkolo ti umedza ki Fino CHamoru. Lo an matuzo tate gi tanoo malaguzo na umedza ki finota sa hutungu na yenani I finota kulan I finota gai amot nui anti I finota gai amot nui tau-tau sa I pengata I kulturata sinya humomlu I tau-tau sinya muna homlu I tau-tau sa gai menhalom I finota an huli hafa guaguaha di sanhizong hafa guaguaha di sistemen americano di sistemen edukasyon sinya mali na kulan ti tininas adu ti maulik para hita sa guaha otro na hinaso guaha megay na hinaso kulan guaha mega na tau-tau na malatenya kining guaw ni masangan na nu hinenyo I oppression ni mengagi di sistema no lo hafa ha epok zo na umedza ki Fino CHamoru hutungo na di hagas ha na tempo antes ni man martu I tau-tau lago gwini di tau-tau hutungo na guaha hinenyo lo ti mega na problema kumupago I colonizasyon gwini ti guaha gwini ha ti gadi gwini ha gadi di hilo itano za pago humuzong I mimo pago humuzong I climate crisis pago humuzong I hinenyo no mega na klasen hinenyo sexism patriarchy classism and todo this yan na magad na taza na finiho di finota no edu siya no sa taza di tempota di hagasat na tempota pues pues hukeke hasu hafata manu ta na hujung tatlu I otro na linatla I otro na manera na manlotla I otro manera na to relate to each other to relate to the earth to relate to our language and our wisdom hafata manu ta usa I kulturata para na hujung otro na sistema hafata manu ta usa I finota para na hujung otro na klasen linat la parita. Da edzui I muna epozo.
Pues to masahapa tidot mo, iremedio y pinotsamoro. Claro. Angin masahapa tidot mo. Sa gof interesante sinangan mo no Dakota. Sa guana biya na apane na muna interesado itaw to. Siguni pino mo, kala nilelik mo na no uminteresado ho, put rason na guaha siya rin ramo gini giorida ni kalanti conviene ti maulik parahita lo tangin human holomet gifino tamuru guaha guihi remedio guaha gui chalan mona para minaulik todo do itauto. Lo tangin guan al class en tauto leko, you know, no hagasa milyonario do, mege sa lapeo, tada umistotod ba do? Lo be jawa, lo kwe be pino tamuru, ko hu, andang medjag do pino tamuru, ko utinilay ka na soko. Itigin sasangan. Lo gof importante na una punto. Sa ahe tiyo patatsalik, ahe da tiyo dispepresya. Sa sumen importante na una punto. Dano, guana biya na ti makomprendi ni pomalo. Pero sa tungan sa guan seswe na dos no komentos po disti na punto. Lo. Dawa na bina, klaro na hunggan gay sustansya do na punto. Sa, lenguaje tinilalay ka ho. Kung maganda no, kung tinilalay ka ho. Dano po una, dano no Terrence, hamdo ang experiences ti kung magahin na pago na guahalugat mo para un haso na esta pago kalan un tungo femino CHamoru da nasa antes na tiempo kalan ti conviene pat guan Fino mo po una kalan mamahlo ho didi podi na itiningo mo ko pago na un acepta da gayo pago gi nuevo na estado ko tinilay ka ho.
Again, pagu has that matured so pagu. Pues hunggan
Pago manggagano sa lapi. Mangga. Wali na, lo mo muna.
pues hunggan pagu you know who accepta na esti na finota ti para by who diroga, you know, by apati sa by nai huzung sa esti na ifinota no ni na in siguala. Da ano hunggan angin dångkolo do pagu hu li I adilantu dan todo do po ifinota. Dan lokwi gi ifinin na gwaku sa hu fanana gwino I tetset grado. Hafa taimanu be explica todo ni hafa masusesa di pagu gitanota lo gi finot CHamoru. Por ejemplo, hu fanana gui I historia ni Micronesia. Pues taimanu be explica na, you know, hafa bida niha I tato sanhizong para hita, ta hafa na latsi. You know, todo ana nesita be hasu, okay, hasu gi I CHamoru na manera, tibe hasu na be fanagwi gi I Americano na manera. Pues manan gi I experience ko gi sinipo, tumulalay ka taimanu hu li'i I tano, taimanu hu li'i I todo ni masusasari gitano.
Dispensa pareho na question, pues tipo de hushenti na mamalaw, desde que anay pot gunzo kulan interesado por lingua en CHamoru lo tada lugar para be fuera de escuela, you know, elementario, but you know, middle school, tada lugar ni sinabe babadi mas no I estina interesado who da este tempo antes de malid ni dos gatsongo okay que estot ba sinanaubia taubio no hafesti na palabra tamana masangan lo now ha ti tada mas kia now este ki hu malid ni dos gatsongo pues
Lo pago na gaigyo na gweno na estao untungo femino CHamoru. Ko ginasomo ang ginunhatan pati na tiempo ko tinilay ka ho como tauto como ininggem mo. Inige na papasino ko tinilay ka ho but ko guaha nuevo na tiningo. mensaje no nuevo na tiningo, put razón na nuevo na tiningo, kalanti nilaika todo y natan mo gi urizamo, gi sinyataolo, gi politikat, gi ekonomia. Ini ki na papay no.
Isinenti na ho hahasu mas kabalis do. Mas kabalis sa mas hutungo pat hu edzak I Fino tomorrow. Parao really starts with the self-identity and attributes that people, at least nowadays, who, you know, they can trace back their lost self-identity simply because they don't know where they're from. Timatungo ginen mamanusia za kontoro lokwe I Fino niya.
Okay, pues kalan dinansi punto niya na si Dakota na kalangwaha amot niya sti, no? Kalangwaha amot niya sti na tiningo. So, men importante sti na punto na. Pues, para nuevo na kinahulo, okay? Nuevo na kinahulo, pago taolog 25, 50 años mo na tiempo, na. Hafa mo na klasin Fino CHamoru para mausa. Ko más antiguo, más anciano, con nuevo na tinilaika, sa hamzo an experience este, ako Dakota sa, ito nga nagawa opinion mo po diste. Okay.
Okay, sa matoto to zo nu na dani famagoon. Pos kada dia huhungo ki Fino niha hafa masasangan za esti na grupo I tetset gradu haga sa hufanakui gi katida. Pues esta ginin katida esta ki tetset gradu taimanu matulaika I Fino niha. Ta guabula na hemplu esta hu hahasu sa I miniganya na hu ripapara na mauusa I Fino English na grammar gi CHamoru na palabra. Ano hu ripapara. Por ejemplo, was gi katida kindergarten, ifinani na nahuhungo taimanu mafatina sentensya ni gai idzo. Por ejemplo, you know, si tatahu sinanahu, ti masasangan si tatahu sinanahu, gitinitun masasangan guahu na tata, guahu na nana. Hey, ano gi katida, lopago gi tatsagrado ti huhungo kenao. I otru I taimanu mafatina si sentensya, sa Fino CHamoru sinya I betbu finatnina puesi suhetu. Lo bu magay na brides aniha I suhetu finatnina puesi betbu. Ataka I betbu diput si finatnina. Okay, por ejemplo, you know, masasangan sinana hahanao para, you know, eskwela. Lo sinya masangan humanaw sinana per eskwela. Lo gofda niya po na fortna I suhetu ki I betbu. I otru lokwi I passive versus active na sentensya. Huri papara na zaniha I active. Ti bula na brai huhungo ki passive. Ano angin guaha I zanina gi halami betbu. Por ejemplo, inakadzo nu I nyamu, no? Sempre mafatinas ha okadzo I nyamu. Okay, da estina hemplu hulili I sa gi Storie niha ni mananaitai para orden manaitai. Ti parehu dan hafa masasangan I famagoan. Sa hulii na I Fino CHamoru kalan masta niha I passive voice. Lo famagoan dan niha I active voice like ano kalan I Fino English. Ano hana hemplu ni hulili. Lo hu tatagi parbe kaya rekla lo gof makat ang gengi eskwela ha on korihi. Tagi gima, you know, ma gof korihi. Dispensa sa Guam na gwini halam lo. No, objective observation. O I otimo loko I dispensa uno mas. I otimo was gi I claan I pronouns no guaha exclusive inclusive. Was ataka hufanagui I differentias gi inclusive exclusive. Por ejemplo hit ham, hitahami, ta mami. Sempre maaadzik todo tempo I inclusive. Todo tempo mausa ta hanao. No I zota. Lo hu tatagi parbe korihi lo gof makat. Lo eno hafa hu ripaparagi I halami class. Then SDCI second language speakers.
Man gof inclusive na ito. Italala niya hit.
dispensa ti maestro pues taza kulan ejemplo na tadung tegilo para gi 50 años gwagwahat maanyahu na mas ta usa CHamoru rice gi sinangin dan gi palabra sa esta huhungok ginani manyanahu sinanaubit taubihu esti hat ejemplo niha da kulan natura na humudung mamanzo uno na galago pues o que espia gima mano pa be tali pues sumudung si tataubia da ha tataubiu da ha tansu witati gi dos columns de lanya pola hagyun bandas cause kisinya ha gumorong and he just spoke that naturally and I started laughing he kike hasu da hafaisun jo safana tumatulika bus you know that really made me wonder if it comes out naturally this Chamorization lo tipuri gef ma now malago hana tranquilo sin inteco ni todo estini programas ya de I grants de todo bidamizu na ti para tahana guatu di gi en ejemplo
Okay. Okay, Haguf, no, Otimo, no, sí. Dakota, last word.
Depende. Depende ni hafa malagota. Sa ifinota I rementa. Sa I rementa sinya mausa ni megay na manera. Hafa importante para hita. Ko importante na sinya masangan tuli idzo iya siga. But ko importante na sinya tatungo na adahi that adai hafa adai kumakaleknya. What's up, person who's going to look after me and I'm going to look after you. Ko importante na tatungo na sinya masangan na sinya masangan pas para pas, no? Lo guaylazi na untungo ginin manu edu na palabra zan hafa kumakaleknya di edu na Fino. Lo hafa tamano masangan pas di Fino CHamoru. Sinya masangan lo kwe magong. No? Zan hafa kumakaleknya magong. Sinya hupopolo na ginin magong. Pues hutungo na an gagizo gi metnan midzo na gof stress zo, you know, sa guaha esti na minakat na finaisenya si Saina. Sinya zo patatsung gwini za humagong. Za sinya humudzung I minagong. No? Gai minan halom ifinota lo komalagota na tasoda iminan halom. Hitamohon. No? Pues y otro kiniguao. Ti guaylaji na tasongan na uno hat na talan idinansi. Gua na sinangan niha I kanakamali sinya matungo or hatungo si Senyor Jimmy. Ti sinya un soda hokukut itiningo gi uno hat na halal. Gi uno hat na gumat. Ti sinya un soda todo itiningo gi uno hat na gumat. Pues hungan guaha esti natalan. Zang guaha esti natalan. Zang guaha esti natalan. Lo zengen husangani hamzu na esti natalan I dinansi hat. Tatidi zo sa guahu hat I gaitiningo. Latsi sa humuzuni piniti lokwe. Sempre manaputi otro. Pues hapa taimano tafanafa maulik. Hapa taimano tali na kada tau gaitiningo. Za itset sota. Tafanak komprendi. Tafanak gofli. Za zengen taadzak edu natalan. Sempre humudong bula na talan, sempre humudong mega na talan, lo italan inafamaulit. Inafamaulit na talan.
Bueno,
Sumasit.
dångkolo na kanay paresti na tres. Oh, makat, may sustansya, todo na hinaso. Ganin pa be sangan ta tijizo lo. Sinya na fanaba kamzo. Pues tatiji mono na chalan malago mo. Kumu chalan CHamoru. Ongan. Viva, Kidos Masin.
Mati for everyone. Please join us in the atrium for light refreshments, and thank you again to everybody.